Hi, everyone. My name is Rebekkah Smith Aldrich. I am the co-founder and president of the advisory board for the Sustainable Libraries Initiative. That's my volunteer work. My day job is being the executive director of the Mid-Hudson Library System in New York. And I'm joined here today by Nardia Cumberbatch, one of my colleagues on the Sustainable Libraries Initiative Advisory Board, who is academic librarian at Valencia College in Florida. And our job today is to introduce the Sustainable Library Certification Program to you and answer your questions about that. What we'll do today is do a brief introduction to the certification program, and then Nardia is going to share her experience as an academic librarian going through the certification program, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers that you may have here today. So before we get started, I just wanted to give Nardia a chance to say hi so that you don't just not hear from Nardia into the middle of the webinar. But Nardia, please, if you'd like to say a few words, please do.
Hi, welcome everybody. And even though I'm going to share a little bit of my experience, I work best if you do ask questions. So I do welcome the questions that you have, and I can give you my perspective from an academic library experience.
Thanks, Nardia. So I just want to acknowledge that we're on the calendar today thanks to a new partnership with the Association of Research Libraries, but we have a partnership with a number of associations, and we understand there may be folks from a variety of associations here today. These are all the organizations we're currently in partnership with and offering a free membership to their members. So just a reminder that it might not be all academic libraries here today, but for folks that are curious about the public library program, we're happy to answer those questions here as well. But our main focus here today is for academic libraries. So just a reminder, hopefully folks were able to join us last week for our introduction to the overall opportunity that you have to join the Sustainable Libraries Initiative. But the new memo of understanding with the Association of Research Libraries allows for all members of ARL to also have a free 12-month membership to the Sustainable Libraries Initiative, as well as a discount towards the cost of the Sustainable Library Certification Program. So that memo of understanding is in place for 12 months, and we explained the membership at the last webinar. There's a recording of that webinar if you missed it. This one is also being recorded in case you need to step away or you want to share the information with a colleague. But our goal here today is to address more the second benefit that you now have thanks to this partnership, which is understanding the Sustainable Library Certification Program, if it's a good fit or not for your library, what might be involved, some key things to think about as you consider that opportunity to lead your library forward in a new way. So the Sustainable Libraries Initiative, just a little quick review here. We've been around for almost a decade. Next year will be the 10th year of our existence, which is kind of amazing. But we are a group of colleagues. We are all volunteering, trying to help find ways forward to help libraries confront the realities, particularly of climate change, and think about how we lead from the inside out of our organizations to make sure we're relevant and responsive and connecting with our communities in meaningful ways so that they can thrive in the future, regardless of what happens next. So this is obviously a very large and complicated topic, and it's something that we've been really excited to find so many people throughout our profession who are interested in learning about it, sharing information, and really iterating on each other's work so we can accelerate the work moving forward in the profession. So that's really our goal, is to create a community of practice and advice and share best practices in a way that really helps improve life, not only for library workers inside of our libraries, but also how we contribute to the communities that we are a part of. So we often get asked, what the heck is a sustainable library? So this is what we've identified as 4 key attributes over the past 10 years of the hundreds of libraries we've been working with across not only North America now, but across the world. We really see those libraries that are thriving have these key attributes. They are living authentically, living their values out loud, and really reflecting our core professional values throughout policies, how we treat library workers, how we're running our buildings, and really holding ourselves accountable so that we can be authentic partners out in our campuses and in our communities. And we're really seeing libraries embrace the role with intentionality of being good, solid partners in the work around social cohesion and civic participation. So it's not something like that we might do. It might be fun, could be cool. If someone else doing it, we might help out, but we're seeing it baked into the plans, the strategic plans of libraries that are really excelling in this area. And then the other two are probably pretty classic things you would have expected to see here when we talk about sustainability, particularly as it pertains to climate change, and thinking about bringing down greenhouse gas emissions so we can mitigate the effects of climate change over the course of the next few generations, but also concurrently being active participants in climate adaptation and making sure we're very focused on the realities and the logistics of seeing communities thrive in the face of the many challenges they are confronted with in the current day and what is predicted to be confronting them in the next few years, if not next few decades. So the combination of these four things is where we see a really strong position for libraries moving forward, not only to do good, which is why many of us are in this profession, but also to inspire support from our key stakeholders, those that fund us, those that get to give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down in many different ways, whether it be on social media or deciding how much money that our institutions get. We think this really helps make libraries, again, more relevant and responsive, which is something that we have to do on a very fast cycle these days in order to stay on people's radars and continue to be seen as a good investment moving forward. So the Sustainable Library Certification Program is designed around those four key attributes. And then the really overall thinking behind the certification program is how to help your organization practice what we call triple bottom line thinking or sustainable thinking. Many of you may be aware, particularly if you came to the webinar last week, that the core value of sustainability that has been adopted by the American Library Association defines sustainability just like our project does, using the triple bottom line definition, which means finding balance amongst these three things: environmental stewardship, social equity, and economic feasibility. The thinking being, if we can get closer to balance amongst these three things, or making decisions large and small, we'll be a better partner, a better steward, and have a longer lasting legacy as an organization that really understands how the world works, while also balancing our budgets. So that's a tall order to make good decisions in this manner. So the certification program, really at its core, is designed to help you practice this thinking throughout all aspects of running our libraries, producing services, and seeking out partnerships. So the certification program itself is just a methodology. It's a list of action items that helps you practice this thinking and teaches you more about different subjects and the intersections with the decisions you're making every day at your library and how it intersects with the triple bottom line thinking. Embedded in the certification program are resources, samples of how other libraries do things, stories of how other libraries do things. So you're not reinventing the wheel. Sometimes you're doing new thinking, but a lot of times you're hearing how other libraries have tackled these different issues and then are finding your path forward, given the realities of your particular situation, the political climate you work in, the financial situation that you operate within, the realities of your hierarchy that you operate within. Every library is a little different, and this program does its best to acknowledge that as well as to scale, regardless of the size of a library or at the end of the day, what type of library that we're dealing with. Now, how do we do that, you may ask, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So where are you going to start on this topic? Because it's enormous, right? We're talking about decisions that we make that intersect with the finances of our libraries, with the environment, the entire planetary Earth we are living on, and how some of the decisions we make have a ripple effect on the use of natural resources, the disposal of things at the end of useful life. And we're now also introducing thinking about public health and how people's lives are affected by the products we buy, the disposal of those things, our folks that are in the supply chain that help produce the things we rely on being treated well. These are really big, large issues that we're talking about, which can very well paralyze you if you sit down and think about it a little too long. But what we tried to do, and what we've been developing for the past 10 years, is a certification program that acknowledges the realities and complexities of many of these decisions and tries to help folks think through topics so that you have maybe a fighting chance to make a better decision tomorrow than you did yesterday. So the program gives you really a place to start. Instead of kind of wandering around and cherry picking stuff, it's a methodical way to think through the different areas of work and decisions that we have. So we said earlier in the top of the hour that because of your association membership, you now have a 20% discount on the certification program. This is what we're talking about. The Sustainable Library Certification Program is actually an award-winning program recognized by the International Federation of Library Associations, and it's been road tested and proven. We have over 200 libraries in the program, more than 45 libraries certified now. So you're not the first to go through it. It's been fine-tuned. And I think that maybe would empower you to think about the program moving forward in the future as something that might be a good fit for you. But your mileage may vary, right? So we're here today to talk about that. Now, the certification program itself has many elements to it, but the idea is a step-by-step approach. So you can take one action at a time and really wrap your head around it, working in a team at your library and thinking through how to best approach the different categories of work that are laid out before you in the certification program. Right off the bat, you're given an orientation to the program itself. You get to meet your mentor, which is someone who has been through the program themselves. They've been there, they've done the work. They can coach you through different things that you might come up against that are causing friction for you in the process, or help you problem solve, or help you realize that action item actually has nothing to do with you, move on. So really a guide by the side to help you set your expectations and figure out your path forward. And as I mentioned, there's built-in resources. So there's over 140 action items to choose from. And when you get to them, it's not just like, do this thing and, oh yeah, good luck with that. It's, hey, this is the action item. And by the way, here are some resources that might help you with that. Maybe there's a sample policy or a link out to an organization that will help you learn more about that topic, or seeing how other libraries have done it through their final presentations. So you've got a lot of reference material to understand that, but also enough latitude to make it your own. So it gives you context, but again, allows you the customization you need to face the realities of your particular situation at your library. Because like I said, every library is a little different, as we all know. And the other thing we really work hard at is our community of practice, is so that you're connected with others doing the work, whether it be other academic libraries or libraries of any type that are interested in a particular topic, whether it's collection management or social cohesion or disaster preparedness. Really connecting with others who are thinking about this stuff just like you are in real time, confronting the realities and finding solutions together. So a lot of what we are hopeful for in our program is just creating this support network, that we all own this topic, we're doing our best, we're learning from each other and finding ways forward. And now something I wanted to say early on here is that there's no ticking clock once you start the certification program. So you go at your own pace, based on your own capacity, right? We all know what life is like in the professional world. You know, sometimes you've got the space and time to do a project like this. Other times you have to pull back a little while you have a different priority. And that's completely fine. You can take 18 months to do this. You could take 3 years to do this. You can honestly even take longer. But it's designed as an 18-month program, but going longer is no problem at all. So the categories of work, you'll see they match up. We actually use the same categories of work for public and academic libraries. The school librarian program is very different. We're actually certifying individuals there, not institutions. But for public and academic libraries, we're talking about an institution level activity that you're conducting, and you're working through 12 different categories, which have been summarized here in this list. So right at the top, you're doing work on organizational culture. You're thinking about the commitment to the work. You're maybe even building commitment to the work. So just because you think it's a good idea doesn't mean everybody else does or understands what you're talking about. And that first section, which we'll talk a little more about in a second, really helps set the stage for success for the rest of them. So it's the only one we kind of dictate that you do at a certain time in the process. You do organizational commitment first, because almost everything else will flow from that afterwards. The other categories of work, you can do in any order you want. You can cherry pick things in each category and be doing them simultaneously. That's up to you, how you like to organize a project, but you're going to be doing work in these various categories. So you see here, like waste recycling and purchasing, thinking through your purchasing policy, prioritizing environmentally friendly items, training people to ask the question, do we really need this before we purchase it? Thinking through where things go at the end of their useful life, imagining where you're going to actually put things at the end of the useful life is a pretty big topic. And because you're embedded in a campus setting, obviously there's a lot of partnerships and exploration to do about how how campus-wide conversations are going on some of these topics. So unlike public libraries that are often operating in isolation, you are most likely operating in context of others that might be thinking about some of the same stuff. So as you'll hear when we get a chance to speak with Nardia, that's going to be a key element of the work as an academic library, is not just, doing it your own way, but finding out what's going on campus-wide. How do we fit into that story? Are we blazing a new trail here, or are we looking for partnership on one of these topics? So as you move through these categories, you'll see and I'm going to show you in just a sec, there's a number of actions under each of these categories. So under partnerships, you'll see maybe 8 or 9 actions that you would do. Some of them are required and some of them are recommended. So required ones you must do unless you have a particular circumstance that means you can't follow through with them, which certainly happens. For example, here at my own organization, there's a section on transportation, which is a big area to think about when reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Now, there's some questions related to if you have a fleet. If your organization has its own fleet of vehicles. My organization does not. We outsource that work. So we just skipped that section. So we're not fanatical about it. We're not breathing down your neck on these actions. We're just looking for your real life experience on these particular topics and finding places where you can fine tune or do new thinking or create some new opportunities for your organization. Each of those categories, as I mentioned, you're going to see a set of actions. This is what it looks like when you get to that page. So we call these tiles. When you click on the tile, it opens up the action item, shows you the resources, and has an interactive area where you're going to be telling your story of how you're answering this question, or you've investigated this topic, or you need to tell us we don't have a fleet, we're moving on this question. But this is exactly what the interface looks like. You just click on this, it opens up, and you see a little more information about the topic, resources to help you follow through with it. And again, the place where you'll put in your answers or upload a policy or a picture or a program that shows the work that you've done on that particular topic. There's resources all over this program, both embedded in the certification program and found within the Sustainable Libraries Initiative website. These are just a few examples of what we're talking about. So at the beginning of the program, there's an employee survey, which we've already written for you and help you administer. There's a CO2 calculator that helps you benchmark your greenhouse gas emissions as an institution. There's not only advice on how to do a waste audit, but a recording, a video of another library that's done that to help you understand what it is and how you do it, which is actually very critical to managing materials in your institution. It sounds a little wacky, but most folks report that it's a very worthwhile activity that they do on the outset of the certification program. Now, I mentioned section 1 being really key because what you're truly doing through the certification program, I guess I'm just doing the big reveal here now, what you're really working on is shifting the culture of your organization so that it becomes a reflex that people just think differently moving forward and consider not just how much something costs, but how much it impacts human life, how much it impacts our planet. So as I said, this is the one section we ask you to do in order, which is first, because again, you need to build buy-in across the organization, embedding some of these things in policies to give you the license to do some of the work, helping people understand it's everyone's job to be thinking differently moving forward, and really holding people accountable for that moving forward is pretty important. It also acknowledges that not everyone understands these issues or why we're focused on this or how to do some of this work, and really encourages some training opportunities for staff to understand things like the zero waste hierarchy or understanding just little small eco-literacy tips that help them make better decisions moving forward when it comes to maybe assessing the carbon footprint of an e-resource or where to source our pens from if we're buying those ourselves in our organization. So the other thing we have to think about is not just this moment in time, but is how do you not only embed this in the culture, and after you, the champion, is maybe no longer there at the head of this effort, that it just keeps going. And so thinking about, again, how you not only embed it for today, but also for tomorrow is a big part of that first section. So definitely doing that work first. You don't have to do that work before you join the certification program. It's actually designed to help you do that work to be successful further on in the process. So the other thing I wanted to point out is there's a lot of intersections with the action items and the work that you do in the program. Much of it is honestly work you already do, just helping you do it in a different way. Other components of it are helping you to align with new thinking in the profession. And here's an example of that. I think Alex may be able to put a link of this in the chat for you. But in June, we released the National Climate Action Strategy. And so thinking about how to accelerate work in these areas through our libraries, the certification program helps you do that. So if this was something on your radar and you're thinking to yourself, like how amazing it would be to have a climate action plan or a sustainability plan for your library, this program is designed exactly to help you do that and to move more quickly on these topics, which is what the world is really crying out for right now. So another key feature of the program is really helping you to tell your library's story along the way. A big part of our thinking and designing the program was to help increase your library's visibility on your campus, in your community, as a leader on this topic and as a really strong and authentic partner. So we've built in elements to the program that help you tell your story. There's reflection questions, there's data gathering that you do. We're working on a new storytelling tool for next year that help you display the data that you collect over time in a really user-friendly way that you can use in presentations you might do at your institution or at a conference. It's encouraging to get you to get out there and network on your campus and maybe even beyond your campus boundaries to really connect with folks so they see your library perhaps in a new light. And at the very end, you'll do a presentation that kind of summarizes your story, which again, you can use all over the place. I know I've used mine with legislators, I've used it with colleagues, as well as my board and my funders. So it's built into the program to help you do that part because we really feel like the work you put into it, you should be recognized for. We just had our board retreat 2 weeks ago, and we were just it was just fantastic to see how many people were winning awards for the work they're doing in this space, who are being chosen for conferences, who are writing papers on this topic. It's really creating environments in which you can thrive on a number of different levels. So again, we've tried to bake that in, and Nardia's going to talk a little more about how that worked in her particular situation. And then we're really encouraging you to be an ambassador for this work as you go through it, as well as once you finish it, to help others connect with what you're doing. We do think this is a way forward for libraries in the future, and word of mouth of your experience is really the strongest way to help others connect with the work and find their way on their own path to sustainability. Just a few more quick slides, and then we'll chat with Nardia here, which is going to be way more interesting than what I'm doing. But your mentor is such a cool person. They're a volunteer who has been through the program themselves, and they volunteer to help you with the program. Both Nardia and I serve as volunteers, mentors to folks in the program currently. And it's really rewarding. I know I'll just speak for myself. I find it rewarding to help someone else through the program, given what I've learned through not only designing the program, but going through it with my own institution. But really, sometimes I'm just there to cheer them on and say, you got this, and don't worry about this, and let's focus over here and help you get reset when, life got in the way and you haven't touched it in a month and you kind of forgot where you were. So we're really there as a partner and a guide to help you through the program. And a lot of times we're just helping. What we find is that a lot of folks in our profession are kind of overachievers and perfectionists. We're just helping people like chill and set the expectations at the right level so you don't get overwhelmed by the process. There's a lot of opportunities to connect with others, as I mentioned earlier. There's a monthly meetup that Alex, who you saw a glimpse of at the beginning of the program, he and Sophia, who are the staff who help run the program on a daily basis, they run these meetups where you can talk to others who are doing work in this area. There's a whole academic library listserv where you can ask questions or, hey, anyone got a good resource for X, Y, and Z, or how did you handle this at your library on your own timeline? You don't have to wait for the monthly meetups. There's a pretty lively Facebook group if you're still on Facebook. And there's also live webinars that are offered quarterly, in addition to the archived webinars, about 4 or 5 years of archived webinars available through your free membership as well. And if we happen to be at your conference, we always try to create opportunities to hang out and meet each other and have a nice meal together. So you can keep your eye out for that at things like LibLearnX, ALA, and other conferences that we have the opportunity to go to. So I'm just going to kind of summarize here, and then we'll switch to speaking with Nardia. But the benefits of certification we have found are many, and I'm personally speaking from experience of what this has meant for my library system. We were certified several years ago at this point, I think, actually, I don't remember what year, I think it might have been 2019. But just last week, my board got an award for the work they did from a statewide trustee association. So the good vibes have kept rolling since we became certified. But the most important thing for us is it created structure. And it created a path forward. Our organization wanted to do the work, but we just weren't sure like where to start and where to go with it. So it created that path forward. We really thought hard about what it meant to our organization. It's really become part of our brand overall as we look at our core values moving forward and how our board operates now, even post-certification. And it's really just created a different environment here. We have a different culture than we did before the certification. And I've had a lot of staff turnover. Many of us did during COVID, and that culture held. And I think that was one of the best tests of our program, was to see that still work, even as we had staff turnover in the organization. But as you can see here, there's a lot of benefits to the program. You learn a lot through the program. You meet a lot of very nice and cool people through the work, but you also see really meaningful things come out of it. You find new partners. You see your work having a broader impact on your campus and maybe in your community or society at large. It goes right back to the core values we have as individual professionals. You get to work on a wider scale on this work. But I think one of the excellent things that we've also done our best to push and design into this is we want you to get the credit you deserve for the deep thinking you do on many topics, but in particular on this area. And it's yours to grab. This is a hot topic that many people are thinking about and wanting to build on. And for an institution to embrace it the way the libraries in the program have, we're seeing libraries getting recognized, being given grants, being invited to tables they've never been invited to before. And I think that's very, very valuable. So it's not just about the completion and the good feeling you get from completing a to-do list, but also that really stepping the organization up, changing the reputation you have in your environment, hopefully, and really getting the recognition that you deserve. And that's why I'm so excited Nardia is here, because I feel like Nardia's story and going through the certification program really exemplify many of these benefits. So I'll just point out, and I'll have this up later when we do the Q&A, so don't freak out that I'm going too fast past these 4 steps. But this is how you can get your free membership through the website. And again, we'll make sure you have this information via email if you didn't get it last week. But you can just go to the website, click on participate, sign up for SLI membership. And when you get to the how did you hear about us form, just select other and connect with the membership that you're a part of, the association you're a member of. And that will help them know to waive the membership fee. And then if you're ready for the certification program, you start by sending an email to the staff here at the Sustainable Libraries Initiative, who will help you get you going on that. So not too difficult to get started and take that first step. But I want to transition here to what I'm most excited about, which is the fact that Nardia has made time to be here with us today. And you may recognize Nardia because she was named a 2024 Library Journal Mover and Shaker. So if you're a subscriber to Library Journal, you may have seen her happy smiling face there, because we're very excited to see Nardia celebrated for the work she did through the certification program and her continued demonstrated leadership on this topic. But Nardia, thank you for being here and taking the time to share some of your story.
Thank you for having me. And I should add a little bit more about myself and my institution. We are a 4-year college in that we offer bachelor's degrees, but we primarily offer associate's degrees. We're also located in Central Florida. So to give context a little bit more about my institution.
And I have to say, I do think that's super relevant where your college is located, because you have more challenges than almost anyone I've seen go through the certification program, and you still came through with flying colors. So Nardia, let's start at the beginning here and just tell people why you decided to be the champion for this program at your institution.
To be fair and honest, I think it's just a natural progression of the work I've been doing at my institution. Since I joined my institution, I've been on the sustainability committee at our campus-based level. So for me, this is a natural progression. For the last 5 years, we moved away from the campus-based model and we went to a college-wide model. So I'm on the college's sustainable leadership team, and we're basically an advisory committee to the college to help them advance a triple bottom line sustainability framework to our operations work in general. So when I first saw well, actually, I learned about Clarkson University was the first library to get it. And when their press release was shared with me, I was like, perfect. The sustainable certification program aligned completely with what my college was already doing. So I'll acknowledge that I wasn't new to this. So I love the fact that it aligned with what my institution was doing. It aligned with what I was personally doing. So the work that I do with students related a lot to sustainability, particularly for health. I'm the liaison to science and health science. So for me, it's a natural connection that I have. It's a personal interest. So championing this at my institution, the other side of it, to be selfish, is we're a library. A lot of times people think that libraries are, that's where your money goes. There's not necessarily a return on investment. Yes, we know academically and the literature shows that there's a return on the investment. But by going through the certification, I wanted to spotlight specifically what the library was doing for our institution. The great thing about our sustainable leadership team is that we've got our campus president on the team, department heads on the team, faculty and students on the team. So I wanted our library to go through this to illustrate, here's what our library, specifically what our library is doing, not just what our institution as a whole is doing. But I wanted to highlight that. So that was, for me, one of the personal reasons why, not just the natural path that I was taking.
Sounds like you saw it was a perfect fit for some of your goals that you had and raising the profile of the library, which is cool to hear. So, well, you got to that point, like you saw the press release from Clarkson, you're like, hey, that really is kind of aligning with my vision for what could be in the future. How did you build buy-in for it, though, with your stakeholders?
So I will share this, that we got certified in 2023. So when we first started was in 2022. Our institution took a very conservative look when we were in the pandemic. So we were actually remote for a year and a half. So when we came back, 2022 was like right in the midst of us coming back fully to the campus. So our library leaders were very concerned about burnout. As everybody experienced in the pandemic, they had a lot of people leave the institution. Our institution had a lot of people leave. To give context a little bit about our institution and why buy-in was important is we've got 7 campus libraries. We serve 76,000 students. We've got 7 different library administrators. And with that number of students, we only have 29 full-time employees, 15 of which were librarians. And that's when we're fully, everybody's in their place. So when 2022 happened, I came across this. Burnout was a huge concern for our leaders, and they were very reticent to go through this. So for me, one of the things I looked at when I was looking at this is I wanted to hear what our leaders' concerns were, because again, I've got to get a college-wide system of librarians to look at this program, library employees to be participating in this program. So I had to be mindful of burnout. So one of the things that we did, and again, our process of getting buy-in was 3 months. It was the longest part of it, but it was the most important part. So one of the things that we tried to do, I reached out to our Office of Sustainability. So we do have the privilege of having an Office of Sustainability to get a little bit more understanding about the operations side. Who would we connect to as the library was going through that? So the stakeholders, so identifying those key people was one of the first things that we did. The other thing that I did was I did a roadmap based on Clarkson's actual press release. I was like, what did Clarkson do? What could I find on their website that they were doing that aligned with what we were already doing? So we actually created a presentation that we presented to the deans, and I crosswalked, okay, here's what Clarkson did. Here's what we are doing. Notice the alignment. I learned more about the program. Here's some of the steps in the program that we in the library don't know anything about. So when it comes to operations specifically, our finances, if we're not doing grants, are controlled by the college level. So making those connections for the library. And then we had a larger team meeting with all the full-time employees in the library. I will not say we had 100% buy-in, but the majority wanted to pursue this when we framed it in the context of this is not additional work. This is work you're already doing. We pointed out, here's the college's strategic goals. So we did align them with the operations strategic goals that dealt with sustainability, and we aligned them with the college's strategic goals that had to do with graduation and our general goals for the 10 years. So we tried to point out that if we go with this, here's how we'll align with the college's goal. And I think that was the key part to get buy-in from everybody, that final piece where we're saying, if you do this work as librarians, you are going to be looking at your work from a sustainability lens, but here's how your work will help the college's strategic goals. I thought that was really important.
That's brilliant. I was having flashbacks when you said the burnout concern was a big part of the barrier you identified before you started. And that was a huge selling point in my own institution, was the fact that we had never seen such low morale in our organization at the time we began. And that was part of the pitch, was saying, bring people together to work on a common goal and help them feel more in control of the situation, which was kind of, for us, it was a fiscal problem, was feeling really out of their control. And it really did prove to work well, that when folks saw when they came together, they not only made better decisions, they were saving the organization money. They felt really impactful. And we just actually, when we won the award I mentioned last week, one of our retirees saw it on Facebook and chimed in and said, this was one of the best parts of working there. And she worked there for 30 years. So I think that's a super important point that you made. It's not just about adding on new stuff. It's about fine tuning what we already do, which is a big part of the work. So at the end of the program, what would you say some of the outcomes were that were achieved that you feel really made a difference long-term for your institution?
Well, definitely that we were the second library to get it. So that was a huge accomplishment. It was one of the wins that we needed. So when you're talking about morale, yes, it was one of the wins that we needed. One of the great things about it is that we started a marketing committee. So it gave, because we used to market individually as campuses. So it gave us the opportunity to combine our work, to share ideas. So suddenly, 2 or 3 people would develop a sustainability program that they could share with other campuses. So it gave us community, but the biggest, so I'm going to say this, I'm going to go with finance. So yes, we did programming, instruction, and work like that, but I'm going to go with the financial impact, because finance was part of that burnout conversation. So one of the things that we had, 2 positives, is that our e-resources budget had been stagnant and flat for about a decade. So let me clarify, that's our e-resources budget college-wide. Individual campuses have their own budgets as well for any new program. So if a new program came on board, they got funding for that. But our shared budget had been flat for 10 years. Yes, when we were going through the certification, we could say that we don't control our budget, but we used it as an opportunity to advocate. And in advocating, when we wrote our white paper, we talked about, the shift, our buying power is changing with our vendors. We used it as that opportunity, and we did get an increase. And again, because library deans were so involved in the conversation and the updates, all the steps of the ways, we reported out on the white paper, and they shared it with the college's leadership team, and we got an increase from that. The other side of it that we wanted to look at was employee pay. So we years ago had wrote a white paper about the student to librarian ratio is abysmal for our institution, even if we're only looking at our state. So we use this as an opportunity to not just talk about the library to student ratio, but employee pay in general. Unfortunately, when it came to our institution, we had a lot of failed searches for our full-time staff, especially. One of the reasons why is, compared to our public library counterparts here, we pay lower. We pay lower than our other academic counterparts. So Central Florida, we have so many institutions. We have the nation's largest undergraduate student body institution, UCF, right here. So we are paying less. So it's we had a lot of failed searches. So we use this as an opportunity to talk about the pay and the number of librarians when we did our white paper. So we revised our white paper to update it with current information, including acknowledging those failed searches, We invited HR to our college-wide meetings to have the open conversation. Now, the benefit of our HR, and I think they were just open and it was the right time. They were noticing the burnout, they were noticing the less employees and things like that, and they were aware. So having them come to our meeting, having that open conversation led to other open conversations where they started visiting other departments to learn about what was happening with them. So our college did a staff compensation study last year. And the wonderful thing is my institution is fantastic. Florida set into law that our minimum wage would be $15 an hour. I think it's by 2026. Our institution had already gone ahead of that. But due to the compensation study, it went even higher. So our minimum wage for all employees because of that compensation study, and I really am proud of the library for helping kick off those conversations, is that everybody's pay increased. Our staffing pay increased. It still does not keep up with the cost of living because we live in Central Florida, but that was important that we are a competitive institution compared to our neighboring institutions now. We're going to get more people with a myriad of experience that they can share with our students, and I think that's really important. So if anything, I want to focus on that financial piece. I'm not saying that that is the only benefit from the program, but those two financial pieces were things that were limiting us for years.
You really positioned your library to have more capacity for the future and demonstrated care and concern for library workers that is necessary to be an authentic partner out in the community. Yeah, that's a real legacy story there, Nardia. I'm glad you shared that one. My other recollection from other presentations we've done together are it seems like your libraries are now thought of differently by the campus sustainability committee and leadership of the campus. If I'm not mistaken, some of your buildings have been chosen as demonstration sites now for some green technology, where before it might have been questionable if your building would have been chosen.
I'm going to say yes, hands down, that was definitely true. I think by being, we've been pilots for the college's different efforts before, but by going through the certification, it's now written into certain things that we will be part of the pilots for certain things. So an example is we're at the start of our facilities strategic planning, and our specific campus was outlined as, our library was outlined because we were the oldest, that we would be targeted for some of the upgrades that they would try out. And again, being the oldest of the campuses means that our elevators are older, the lighting structure, there's no automatic lights in our building, different things like that. So when they're revising that they're going to put in LED lights everywhere, let's test it out in the library. When they're testing out tinting, window tinting, let's test it out in the library. So different things like that. I will say another benefit of going through this, I feel like people listen a little bit better, or maybe I'm connected to the right people a little bit better by going through this work. And here's a great example. The law changed I think it was about a year or two ago, the bathroom bill, that popular bathroom bill that you heard about. I think it was a simple thing, as I'm very proud to say, by listening to my voice about having single occupancy restrooms. One of our campuses, and we identified it was work from the library, where we were like, what are all the single occupancy restrooms that we have on campus? Let's do this. And they built one. So my institution is awesome in that we did not have on that particular campus a single occupancy restroom. It serves so many people by having a single occupancy restroom. We don't have to talk about gender restrooms. We don't have to talk about, we have one of the things that I talked about is, if you are a parent working with your child of an opposite sex, you can't use the bathroom given the way the law is written. So, talking about different things like that. We have students with disabilities, and I think one of the things I always saw was this mother comes with her child who comes to school. And I'm like, you're opposite gender, you can't use the same restroom. So these little things, and people are willing to listen, how something as simple as, let's take the sign and just make it single occupancy restroom.
The problem solving, you're now at the table for that problem solving. That's great. So, Nardia, one of the things that you and I agreed we should talk about here with this group, given the particular slant towards academic libraries, was talking a bit more about how the certification program and the work involved in it intersects with the realities of being an academic librarian as it pertains to scholarship.
So one of the things that I'm required to do as a Valencia librarian is we've got 7 competencies, and one of the competency is scholarship and professional development, as part of my scholarship, one of the things I look at is I get to provide research assistance directly to facilities leaders. So by being part of that team when they're looking at new projects, I get to be the one to help them. Let's look at what the research says, not what we feel. So that's a key. Let's look at it from, especially when we're looking at environmental initiatives. The other aspect is and I will share that this came directly because we got the certification. A lot of people saw the press releases and things like that, and they approached me because they were looking at grant funding, specifically grant funding related to sustainability. So it gave me the opportunity to work with faculty members that I would not necessarily have worked with because they're outside my discipline, especially if we're going to look at engineering. But looking at grant funding and helping them find research, because at my institution, one of the things about grant funding is that you're required to do a literature review. So giving me the opportunity to look at aspects of what they're doing. Another aspect why that's important is that it gives me an idea of things that they're thinking about doing with their students. So a lot of our classes have undergraduate research embedded in the class. So it gives me the opportunity to learn and share with the librarians that may be related to that. Another aspect of what I do is I provide library instruction, and I get to integrate sustainability within my library instruction. Why is that important? So for example, and I say again, not every course at my institution has undergraduate research component in there, but our honors classes do. So like, for example, when I was working with our English professor, getting sustainability integrated when they're looking at their topic. We're building a brand new program on public health. So building that in from the ground up. So for public health students, getting them to think about who's missing in the research, I thought was really important. Getting them to think about what are your preconceived notions about what is a vulnerable population. So like blowing students' minds that in Florida, rural students are vulnerable populations. Thinking differently about the data. On a personal note for myself, I've had the opportunity, I'm currently writing a book chapter, and I was really love the fact that in my section of the book, I think it's 3 of the 4, or I'm sorry, I can't remember if it's 4 or 5 libraries are going through the sustainability certification program or have already completed it. So a good chunk of us in that section are going through this program talking about sustainability. And one of the things I'm going to talk about from the perspective as a mentor, working with other people in the program and us sharing ideas. So I know in California and another one in Missouri, they share ideas across each other. They have partnered with other librarians in different places to talk about sustainability. So like you saw the picture from Sarah's presentation, Morgan, who's a sustainability librarian out in Cal Poly in California. She presented on generative AI and sustainable library research topics. So it gives us an opportunity to learn from people going through the programs, and it applies to our scholarships on things that we might decide to write about. Like I've had that opportunity, and it's pretty engaging work, and I've enjoyed it.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that. That's very cool. I'm so glad you're writing that chapter. That's fantastic. So Nardia, you said we would draw energy from what questions folks had. So why don't we open it up to folks and see what might be sitting there in the chat. I wonder, Alex, if you could help us identify what questions we haven't covered yet.
So far, no questions just yet.
All right, cool. So why don't we've got plenty of time. If folks want to raise their hand, we can unmute and chat about any questions you may have about the program. All right, that was the awkward 10-second pause. Maybe we don't have any questions here today. So Nardia, high five. We must have done a very good job here. But I just want to say, Alex, who you just saw flash on the screen, is one of the folks on the other end of the line. If you were to email to learn more about the certification program or to sign up for it at sliadmin@suffolknet.org. And we just want to give a shout out. Who is suffolknet.org? That is the Suffolk Cooperative Library System, who is the fiscal sponsor of the project. So Nardi and I are volunteers. We have an 11-member board of volunteers. And then Alex and Sophia are really the boots on the ground day to day, helping folks get signed up and shoot out technical problems and figure out how to connect with your mentor and all that good stuff. So you've got a nice team of people here, including 20 mentors who have stepped up to volunteer their time and help you through the program. So we welcome questions, even if they're after this program. You've now got our contact info. And Alex, I wanted to invite you if there's anything you wanted to add before we close up shop here this afternoon.
We did just get a question.
Okay, cool.
Christina asks, our library is moving to a new building soon. How can I talk to my director about starting the program sooner rather than later? He would rather wait until after the new building is built.
I mean, honestly, it will influence choices you make about the new building. So as you might not be presented with a lot of decisions you get to make about that new building, but when you are, it will help you think through what would be the best choices for that new building in light of the triple bottom line. So that's actually my background is in building and helping libraries build sustainable buildings. There are so many choices that get made during the construction of a new building, even renovation of a building, that could be you could help inform making healthier decisions for indoor air quality, for end of useful life. Who made this thing that we're now spending all this money on? There's a lot to learn from the community about sustainable design and building. There's lots of products to be aware of. There's a whole vendor database of vendors that other folks in the program have worked with that might help you solve issues that come up during construction. So I think I would think it might be easy to make the case, but understanding that your director also may be under a lot of pressure right now. And so it might feel like just one more thing. But Nardia, I wonder if you could help someone understand, like, it's not just one more thing. It's something that's going to help you through this big thing.
Well, I'm actually going to steal a little bit from our new director of sustainability. One of her concepts is actually recruiting students. We have a lot of students come out of state to come to our institution. So in student recruitment, it's a selling point to talk about the green planning that went into your building. We find that because our students can go to any of our campuses, that they're more willing to go to the campus that is more eco-friendly. So it is a selling point to think about that ahead of time before you build a building, because when you have to retrofit, it actually ends up costing more. So it might be worthwhile to have those conversations, those thought questions ahead of time, because when you build the green and you think about it in that aspect and you look at the resources that are provided to you, so you can think about that strategically, you can maybe actually end up saving your institution funding. And thinking about when we're talking about climate and your unique situation of where your institution is that building something for disaster prepared, not disaster, I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting the word right now.
Climate adaptation, like really understanding what are the top hazards to your geography and how do you help protect that building long term?
Yeah.
Christina asked, is there printed information that I can show him about this?
So there's definitely info on the website that Alex has linked there in the chat, the SLI resources page. If there's particular talking points, we're actually here to help you craft those if you'd like. But the website itself has a lot of information about the program and the selling points of it. But if you don't see what you want, just reach out. We'll help you with that.
And thank you. That was a really great question. And again, I'm an advocate for looking at things strategically. I think that's one of the, I didn't emphasize that enough when I went through the presentation, but if we look at individual behavior, it's sometimes more difficult to change than if we change it as an institutional culture. So it provides an opportunity for the library to be the forefront of getting the rest of the institution to think and or act and work in a certain way.
A great point. All right, great. I see Alex is offering to meet individually with Christina. That's very nice, Alex. Thank you.
No problem.
So thank you so much for the question. If anybody else has another question, you can go ahead and put it in the chat, or you can ask it out loud.
So I think if you take anything away from this, I hope you'll see is that we're friendly people who are just like you, trying to do good work in our institutions and position our libraries for success for the future. So as we've said all along this afternoon, please reach out if you have more questions. Alex will supply a recording of this webinar and the links shared in the chat to you via email if you registered with us. And please don't be a stranger. Even if you don't sign up for the certification program, you're welcome to come to the meetups and hang out and poke around on the website. So definitely get your free membership and learn more about it. And we look forward to talking to you later. Thank you, Nardia. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.